And hello, welcome to PM Express tonight. Tonight, a conversation that has taken the country by storm, where the hairstyle of two teenagers has become the most topical subject in the last few days. But it is broader than just the hairstyle. It is about diversity in our schools. And it is this question of the Rastafarianism that has triggered all this. What is the background to this? What do we know? What we know is the students with dreadlocks have been denied enrollment into the Achimota Senior High School, which is the heart of this whole boiling controversy, as we've seen. We've had several responses in the wake of that particular incident, which has brought in the GES, Parliament, and many civil society groups also joining into this conversation. You've also been having it on social media platforms, trending everywhere you see it. Now, what is the school's position on the matter? According to the school, no cutting of hair, no enrollment. That's the policy that they operate by at the Achimota Senior High School. The GES was forced to intervene in this matter at some point. And what was their position? They came in, according to the Director General, and the spokesperson articulated this position to us here on multimedia. And he says, school authorities of Achimota cannot refuse to admit the two students in this particular case. Okay, now we heard from the father of the boy, one of the boys in question. And he told a very strong story. He says, my son equally deserves the right to access education. And this is a fundamental human rights question for the parents, because for them, it is a cultural expression which is enshrined in the Constitution, and they want to enjoy the fruits of that right as has been agreed and enshrined in the Constitution. But of course, the GES, after the school, Achimota School, the headmistress stood her ground, makes a U-turn, rescinds the earlier decision, supports Achimota School from what we hear from the parents of the school. We're still yet to hear categorically from the GES since they first spoke publicly directing the Achimota School to admit the students. After those meetings, we haven't heard from them. But this is a side of the story we've heard from the father. And no cutting of dreadlocks, no enrollment seem to have returned and is being implemented by the school. It's engaged a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs on this. Now, what is the Rastafari at a glance, by the way? This is at the heart of this. It is a religion, as far as you're concerned, young Africa-centered religion we developed in Jamaica in the 1930s, following the coronation of Haile Selassie as king of Ethiopia in 1930. And this is according to the BBC, by the way. And so this is a religious matter. And I've heard arguments, for example, on this, drawing from the Constitution, insisting that this is discrimination on the basis of a person's religion. But then I'll tell you shortly what our Constitution says and whether the school has a constitutional right to also reject the students. Now, the Rastafari at a glance, as we begin to delve into this, they have a huge world population, more than 1 million. If you come to Ghana, we've been talking to the Rastafari Council of Ghana, and they talk about 10,000, more than 10,000 members in Ghana alone. So there's a huge population, and all of them have children. And I'm wondering, for example, tonight, this is something that we'll be interrogating. These 10,000 Rastafarians with their children, they must have been educated in Ghana with their dreadlocks. So why is this such a big deal now? What has happened in the past with them? We'll track the precedent on this very shortly. But there's a bigger conversation to be had beyond the Rastafarian question and this current development, because it's more about diversity. Because if you go back to hijab, we've had our Muslim friends raise this question for some time, and it has been simmering without this much attention. And so we're looking into this, tracking back and bringing back the issues so we open up the conversation, right? Because others will say, but what about us? What about the hijab? Because students from the Anissa Senior High School and the Mercy Islamic Senior High School were asked by their supervisor in charge of the center to remove their veils before writing the science paper of the 2020 WASI examination. This is just recently. This is the Islamic religion, right? And this for them, it's very central to what they believe in. It's very similar to the current instance. But what has happened about this, right? We had the Deputy National Chief Imam, for example, in 2019, called on the government to declare its stance on the wearing of Islamic veil. So that is how this matter itself had evolved. But we haven't seen clarity on this. And I guess this is time to get the GS and education authorities to give us a proper policy clarity on these issues. And that is why we're having this conversation. But there's a legal aspect to this that we'll be interrogating also today. What is it? If we go to Article 21(1)(c), this is all about rights for those in that sector, because they talk about all persons shall have the right to free practice any religion and to manifest same. If we come to the education part, equal education for all in this particular area, also education or any other social economic benefit, by reason only of religion or other beliefs. You cannot deny them. They make strong reference to this. This is the 1992 Constitution, by the way. But there have been some opposing views. For example, Mr. Kofi Asari with the Africa Education Watch makes the point that the two boys were not denied admission. And by the way, Achimota's position is exactly that, on the basis of their religion. He says, we have admitted you, but if you want to enroll, you have to comply with our rules. Now, they were only asked to cut down their dreadlocks in accordance with the school's rules and regulations and get back to school. And so simply do that and you get into the school because you've already been admitted. But then we've had lawyers also now point to another aspect of the Constitution that creates an exception for students under 18. This is fascinating for me. I'll put that to my guests tonight and get what they say about it, because it says every person shall be entitled to his personal liberty except in the following cases in accordance with the procedure permitted by law. And this is the interesting bit. E, for the purpose of education or welfare of a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. In other words, you have freedom to do anything. However, that freedom can be curtailed for the purpose of education, right? And for the welfare of the person who has not attained 18 years. And so the key question becomes, what is the ages? What are the ages of the teenagers involved? They are teenagers. What age exactly is it? Because if that is below 18 and they are students, the Constitution, the lawyers have argued, allows Achimota to do what they've done. I mean, that is clearly one of the key things we'll be looking at tonight. My guests are cutting across, are joining me tonight. We have the father of one of the students and the student himself joining me in the studio. And I will join by Angel Kabonu with NAGRA. We'll be joined by Sheikh Arima Yao, of course, with the Chief Imam's office. And listen, we have all this covered for you so we can have a comprehensive conversation. Stay with me after this break. Fascinating conversation into diversity in our schools here on PM Express. And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. And I'm glad that we could have a conversation about something that all of you have been talking about in the last few days. In the studio with me tonight is Tyrone Magai, who is obviously one of the students who was denied enrollment at Achimota School. And he joins me in the studio. Hello, Tyrone.
Yes, sir.
Great to have you. Rasad, thank you very much.
Yeah, this Terrio.
Terrio, okay, yeah.
Terrio.
Great.
That's what this be bridging.
Okay, so that's your son.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for joining me. Were you in the meeting with the GS?
No, sir.
Okay, you were in a meeting with the GS. So that's the other family were in the meeting. They briefed you.
Me, you know.
Okay, they've informed you of what happened. Yes, okay, we'll talk about the details. Joining me via Zoom tonight, we'll be joined by Angel Kabonu, who is the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers. They held a press conference and were very vocal about their position on this, supporting the Achimota school's position. You saw there a good friend of mine, Angel Kabonu, who joined us shortly on Zoom. Mr. Kabonu, thank you for your time again. Grateful to have you. We'll also be joined by Sheikh Arimaya Shaibu, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, who's also joining us tonight. We'll have a legal perspective to this because fundamentally, many say it's at the heart of this. And so we'll be joined later by Martin Kpebu, who is a lawyer. Listen, I appreciate that this is a bigger conversation that affects women, I understand, far more, they've argued, because girls go to school with their hair either braided and they're asked to remove it too. And so they say, but that is a conversation you must have. We must have that. And so there's a broadening of this conversation that we need to have. And this is just a tip of the iceberg as we begin to unpack and peel off the layers of this conversation triggered by Tyrone and his father and the others who've been affected by this. Let's start with you, Tyrone. So maybe I should bring you in that on this, because since this happened, the GS issued a directive that they should admit your son or let him enroll.
Right.
We know that subsequent to after the meeting, things may have changed slightly.
Yes.
What is the latest as of today or tonight? Has anything changed?
No, sir. They've not called us, or I think they took their stance and they made their decision that they were not going to allow him to come, except he goes to cut his hair. So we've not had any other.
So as it stands, he's still not in school?
No, sir.
Okay. Is there, what do you plan to do? Because this definitely, he cannot go to school because he's a brilliant kid.
Yes, sir.
So what's the father's plan for the son?
Well, we're looking to find another school for him, a school that will admit him, so that he will start his education. He will start learning, because he cannot be sitting outside while we're struggling to get him into Achimota, and then while his colleagues are learning. So that's a decision I've taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've given up on Achimota?
Yeah, actually, it's not like we really were craving to go to Achimota, For me, I know people have attended other schools, and they are really like elite. They've done well, Even presidents. It's not every president of Ghana attended Achimota. So Achimota isn't anything that I think it's super beyond the grades. So for me, a school like, let's say, St. John's or Accra Academy or Presec, Disadel, like my father attended Upukuwari, and they all did.
Was he also Rastafarian?
No, sir.
Okay, didn't he have dreadlocks on?
He didn't have dreadlocks, but he was a good man.
Okay.
He passed away. He was a good man.
So which school have you settled on, if you have at all?
Well, we've not had a school yet, but we're looking to check on Achimota, Accra Academy, or some other schools. We've actually not checked or made any effort.
Okay.
Of course, they just started classes, I think, on Monday, and today is Wednesday. So we're looking to the end of this week, and then from Monday, I'm definitely going to start looking at it.
Why are you waiting, though? Because this is his education, and his colleagues have already started.
Yeah.
So what's stopping from actually starting now the search?
Actually, I wanted to start, but my girls, they are triplets. So the sisters had St. John's, and they started classes on Monday. So yesterday, which is the Tuesday, when they came in, they came with a report that the parents, the old school association or something from the school want to talk to me about their hairs. So today I had to go there, and I couldn't meet the talk to guy. So that means tomorrow I'll have to go there, and I don't know if I'm going to get that cleared or, that's why.
So he has two other sisters?
Yes, please.
They were admitted at St. John's?
Yes, please.
They also had dreadlocks?
Yes.
They were admitted, they were enrolled?
Yes.
They've started school?
Yeah.
They've been in school for how many days?
I think yesterday, Monday, yesterday, and today.
Okay. And then they come home today, is it?
No, yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. and they say some member of the Association of Old Students,
Yeah.
and I presume they will have an office on campus,
Yes.
had asked them to bring you in.
Yeah.
Okay,
To talk about their hair.
to talk about their hair.
And they have to bring it down, or maybe they'll have to look for a school.
Okay. I will interrogate that a bit more with my colleagues, my friends, and who are joining us later. But let me bring you in, Tyrone. How do you feel about all this?
Well, I feel disappointed. I'd say I have this mixed feeling right now, but I'm not so sure what's going on. Being sad, disappointed, and everything all combined. Yes.
Okay. I mean, especially when your other sisters are in school with the dreadlocks.
Exactly.
That must leave you confused.
Yes, exactly. Because they have been admitted, so I was also looking forward to being admitted. But so we're here. And we are still on this problem of being admitted or not being admitted. So we are still really confused.
Okay. Your father says, what about, you still want to go to Achimota?
Well, I think I would have wanted to be at Achimota. But then if there isn't a chance for me particularly, I guess I have no other choice than to look for another school.
So you're willing to give up Achimota?
I would say.
Instead of giving up your dreadlocks?
I would say so.
Okay. Do you have any other, do you have second preferences?
Well, at the moment, not yet. Yes. I was only at Chimota, and then I considered joining my sisters at St. John's. But then there's also this situation that is popping up with their hair. So I think it's more obvious that when I get there, they may also start with these problems about my hair. But if we could get another school, possibly a private-owned school, because one of the officials said all the second cycle schools, as long as they are public, run on a particular similar basic rule, which means if this particular public school fails to admit you per one reason, it's going to be exactly the same for all those. That's per what one person told us at one of the schools.
Okay.
Yes, so it means if I'm considering going to a school, getting into a public school as per the current situation may be very difficult.
Okay. I want to bring in Angel Kabonu. Mr. Kabonu, are you there with me? Hello, Mr. Kabonu. Do I have Mr. Kabonu on?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Thank you again for your...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Let me ask you this. So this revelation that Tyrone has two other sisters with dreadlocks, they have been admitted into St. John's. They've actually started school. They've gone to school for 2 days. Question is, if the dreadlocks are okay for St. John's, why is it not okay for Achimota?
Well, in the first place, Tyrone has been admitted to Achimota School. So Tyrone officially is admitted to Achimota School. Tyrone is having difficulty in applying himself to one rule of Achimota School, that is the cutting of his hair. Let me tell you, in 2015, two students of St. John's Grammar were asked to leave the school and cut their hair before they come to write an examination, St. John's Grammar. So it is not as if we should pitch institutions against institutions. The Ghana Education Service rules and regulation cuts across all secondary schools, that all students in secondary school will have to cut their hair down.
But,
so
that's not the facts.
Come again?
That's not the facts according to this case. The two sisters have been admitted. They've enrolled.
I am the teacher here, and I'm telling you what the rules are.
No, but I'm also talking about this is facts, right? Facts. The two girls enrolled in St. John. They've been to school for 2 days already. But he can't enroll, although he's been admitted because the hair is on. But the two sisters have this hair on.
I'm telling you, in 2015, two girls were asked to go and cut their hair in St. John's Grammar before they are allowed to write examination. They left the school and went to Peace FM. I had to respond to some of those inquiries by the media, and you will see people trolling me on media on some of the comments I made in 2015.
I mean, but that situation is different from this, is not? Because if it's about exams, it presupposes from what you're saying that they may have been in school learning with the hair on, and only were asked to do the cutting at the point of examination. Is that what it is?
No, no. The rule in St. John's, as far as I know it, is that students have to cut their hair down in the school.
So how do you explain that?
It has nothing to do with
So how do you explain the situation?
To do with religion.
Sorry, how do you explain the situation then with Tyrone's two sisters who are already enrolled in high school?
Yeah, so, well, that is how it is sounding a little bit strange to me, because that very school, St. John, applied the rules on some other students, and I had to come in as NAGRAT president to defend the authorities of the school.
Okay, but Mr. Kabano, the bigger question is about, and as we've been discussing, diversity in our schools. The central argument has been that your position, as has been articulated, one, it is a cake a bit, it is discriminatory, it is unconstitutional, and a violation of their rights. Sorry, we can't hear him. There's a problem, I think, with the audio there.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now, Mr. Kabano.
Yeah, I do not know when it started becoming discriminatory and a violation of people's rights. Because since those days that I was in school to today, the rules have remained the same.
The rules have remained the same?
Yes.
Yeah, but what we have seen since this conversation started, Accra Academy, for example, has admitted students with dreadlocks.
Yeah, you know, the rules are in the schools, but there are situations where there are exemptions. I don't know the name of the gentleman in the studio, but they opted to go on social media, and they opted to take their case to the media to contest with the school, rather than sitting down to negotiate with the school to see whether the son qualifies for that exemption. In fact, he is on record to have told the assistant headmaster that he is not sitting down to negotiate with anyone as far as his religious beliefs and manifestations were concerned. In schools, we have students who are on pepper-free, salt-free, fat-free. There is some exemption on health grounds. We have students who, though every student is supposed to do manual work, the students are exempted on special grounds. But it is done in a manner that the general students do not suspect that there is a reason to give preferential treatment, and that they understand that there are genuine challenges and reasons why special dispensation and exemption is made for them. The gentleman in the studio did not opt for that negotiation, but he thought that social media and the media was strong enough to state his case and win his case in the public opinion.
I mean, how do you respond to that?
Well, I don't know what he's talking about now, because you know where to. Ras Aswad.
Yes.
I think those words he spoke right now is what Aswad said, because we had things recorded.
Yeah.
That if you should play the tapes now, you wouldn't hear that statement from me.
Yeah.
So I think he's talking about the wrong person, you know. But what happened is when the thing got to the social media, we had to respond, you know. And it also just spread it like wildfire. Wildfire. So till that we'll be saying, but how did it all started? Because we don't know what we actually did. But once it ended, I think it was in the public interest, or people had interest in it. Because like today, people have posted pictures of some white girls with long hairs and all that. So I think people were interested in that, you know. They thought, why should we Africans or black people be rejected while the white people are privileged to go to the school with their long hairs? And I think this is how it all, you know,
became an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Kabono, you had something to say?
Yes, those pictures being posted on social media about some white students, those white students came to the school on school exchange, and they were in the school for 1 week, 2 weeks to fraternize and feel like students in the school. They were giving the school uniform. They are not students of Achimota Senior High School.
Yeah, but they were. But Mr. Kabono, when
gave them the school uniform
Mr. Kabono, when those students decided to sign up for the exchange program and they got into Achimota, were they or were they not subject to Achimota's rules because they were exchange students?
Those students were in Achimota for 1 week.
No, but my question, if you can address my question, I'm asking you. Yes, they were there on exchange.
That is my answer.
No,
the
sorry.
Students were in Achimota for 1 week.
So they were there for 1 week, but were they or were they not subject to Achimota's rules?
They were there for 1 week. They were on excursion to Kapum Forest. They were at the Buri Mountains.
They were wearing uniform.
They went to places of interest. They were not regular students attending mathematics, English, and geography classes.
If it's for tourism.
Oh, sorry. We lost the audio there at the tail end.
Can I come in again?
Yes, I lost you slightly at the tail end. Please repeat that point you made.
I said those students were not regular students who came to Achimota to study mathematics, geography, and social studies. They came to Achimota School as a conduit, went to Kakum Forest, went to Eburi Gardens, and went to areas of interest in Ghana.
So whilst they were doing this at Achimota, they were not subject to any of Achimota's school rules?
They are not Achimota Secondary School students.
Let me ask you, Mr. Kabono, you've stated quite repeatedly that the GS rules on this are clear. Can you quote specific GS rules on this matter for me?
I am not having the student handbook with me. The student handbooks have been adapted specifically by various institutions with their own slants. The slant should not be in violation of the General Ghana Education Service rule. And I'll give you an example. No student in Ghana is allowed to take mobile phones to school. This is a Ghana Education Service rule.
Yeah, but
you have
the issue.
A mobile.
I know the mobile phone, but we are talking about something different. I was wondering if you could quote for me.
Oh, please. When we are making an intellectual argument, we need to give parallels.
No, but we need to be. But we need to also be specific.
It is not out of place in an intellectual discourse.
No, I get it, but we also need to be specific.
You see, when we limit this discussion to a single occurrence of Rasta hair, we are begging the issue, and that becomes sophistry.
I see, because I'm curious though, because we've been talking about this for the last 3 days, and yet we haven't seen any specific GS provision on this matter. People have just said it exists.
You see, we can't solve this problem when we look at this problem in isolation to the general rules of each school and the comportment expectation of parents and children. We cannot solve the problem in that manner.
Okay, but I need to ask you this, because there is a fundamental question about the Constitution. I know you've argued that this is a violation of your rights. But the Constitution, as I also indicated, makes provision for curtailment of rights. And it makes an exception. For example, I want to quote to you, every person shall be entitled to his personal liberty, except in the following cases, in accordance with the procedure permitted by law. And it says, this is our Constitution. Yes. for the purpose of the education or welfare of a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. He's not 18 years, right? And he wants to go to school. Right. The Constitution allows for the curtailment of his rights. That's like what I quoted.
Right.
For the purpose of education.
Yes.
Do you accept this?
Yeah, well, that's what the Constitution says.
Yeah, I mean, I'll quote it again. Yeah. Every person shall be entitled to his personal liberty, except in the following cases, and in accordance with the procedure permitted by law. Then it lists the exceptions. And the E says, for the purpose of the education or welfare of a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. He's not 18, and because he wants to go to school, the Constitution says you can curtail his rights, his liberty. So what do you say to that?
Well, if that's what the Constitution says, you know, then there isn't much that I can say against that, you know.
Okay. Well, what about you? What's your take on that?
Well, I'm still analyzing the Constitution. I may not be an expert, but does our situation really apply to this particular article?
I mean, thankfully, I have a lawyer on the line. I'll bring in shortly into this to clarify this particular one for me. But that's it. But I'll come to that shortly. Let me ask you finally before I expand the conversation in. Yeah. The argument is from Angel Kabonu and Achimota that they've admitted your word.
Yeah.
It's enrollment bid.
Yes.
Some say, why don't you simply cut the hair and enroll? What do you say to those who make that argument?
Well, it's not for fun, you know? And it's our way of life is something that we have been with. And he also wrote the exams, you see, with the dreadlocks. Like when this man was saying that some girls had to cut their hairs
at the basic level.
Yeah.
So you wrote you went to a government school?
No, a private school.
A private school.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
You know, and he wrote the exams with the hairs. They have their passport photographs on it. So if there's something that was to be done, then I think it should have started from that place. You know, because people were saying they'll have to cut their hairs before they sit for the exams, but that is not what happened. You know?
Yeah.
And when we went to the school with his result slip, his photos were on it. When they gave us the prospectus, the photos were on it. Nobody said anything about it till when he went on the 18th to report.
Yeah. What do you say to that question about simply agree to remove the hair if you really want to go to the school?
Well, I thought the same, but I still think it's not something very necessary, because in the government school, it's not like we are the very first people to go into a second cycle school with our hair. There have been instances where I believe dread people were in schools and they were admitted and were enrolled with their hair. So I wouldn't say it's an event that has never ever occurred. It's nothing new. So I don't really think it's very necessary to cut my hair.
Let me ask you a direct question. Removing the hair as against enrollment, is removing the hair never, or I will consider it? What would you say to that?
Okay, at the moment, I would say, as per my age, I'm going with my dad's religion, just as in every home. Because if your mom or your dad has a religion, you as a kid, it's not particularly your duty, but you may want to go with your dad's religion. They are older than you, and particularly your parents. So as long as I'm under their shelter and care, I will want to go with their religion.
Okay, so I'll never remove it, no matter what. As far as, even if it costs me my education at Achimota and elsewhere, I will remove it.
I would say so.
Okay. I want to take a quick break. When I return, I'll bring in expanded conversation, bring in Sheikh Arima Al-Shaibu, who's joining us, because this conversation is bigger than just a one about, the Rastafarianism. It's about diversity. I'll expand it, bring Sheikh in. I also interrogate the legal question that we've just posed and bring in also joining us private legal practitioner Martin Kpebu. Stay with me. It's live on PM Express here on the Joy News channel. My name is Evans Mensah, and my guest in the studio is Tyrone, a guy who, of course, has been denied enrollment at Achimota Senior High School because of his dreadlocks, and he's been asked to remove it or else he cannot get admission. We've just been joined in the studio by Ras Aswad Nkrabia, who is the father of young Mr. Nkrabia. Yes. Who also has been denied enrollment, still in Achimota, right?
Yes, sir.
And he was in the meeting with GES.
Yes.
Great. So we are happy that he can also join us as we clarify the issues. He's also been pursuing this quite vigorously. Joining me right now on Zoom is Sheikh Arima Shaibu, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, and Martin Kpebu, who is a private legal practitioner. Let's expand this conversation a bit more. Before I bring Mr. Kpebu in, I want to go to Sheikh Arima Shaibu. Sheikh, we are talking about this issue now. It's front and center of national attention. However, this is about diversity in our schools, and you know this too well with the hijab, correct?
Yep. Yes.
What's the case there for you as far as the diversity question is concerned? And the way the campaign, I know that the Muslim community have been on for a while on opening up the schools to be more diverse.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. In the first place, our case was the case of compulsory church service in government-sponsored schools, yeah, and also in the mission-based schools. And our concern was that even in schools that have been built by government and sponsored by government, we found that Muslim students were being compelled to attend church service on Sundays, and we felt that was a very fundamental abuse of their human, a violation of their human rights. But with respect to mission-based schools, we in our negotiations, our agreement was that the Peace Council should facilitate a certain dialogue between the Muslim community and the Christian community or the Christian leadership with respect to the rights of Muslim students in Christian or mission-based schools, where we felt such violations were also taking place. The dialogue has not been concluded. We've not gone far because of late we've not been hearing so much of such abuse, but they still exist and they remain a concern for the Muslim community. With respect to hijab, it has been a case of attempt to deny some Muslim females from writing exams because of the hijab, or sometimes compelling them to remove the hijab in order to be allowed to write their exams, and that we also felt was a violation of their rights. That's right. Whenever it comes up, we raise our voices, and then we find solution. The third level of the violation has to do with in public institutions, at workplaces, where a woman who is mature is able to choose her religion, is discriminated against on grounds that she is using the hijab. For example, within the nursing institutions and other places, those also remain some of the challenges we are still dealing with. But I think that the sharpness has reduced, and then we are able to negotiate and get some of these. The most recent ones were at the WASI examination, which was addressed, and so it did not raise so much of uproar within the public discourse. Okay. So it still remains. We have remnants of some of those concerns which we are seeking to address, all within the context of diversity. It appears to me also that probably we did not anticipate these challenges within the context of evolving diversity that we have to deal with as part of our social reality and as also part of our democratic governance. Whilst we uphold diversity and promote democracy, we did not anticipate that diversity can come with its challenges. And so we have left this, and it keeps on coming up as a challenge. I think we need to open up and engage in a certain kind of dialogue that deals with diversity as it comes in confrontation with established standards of behavior and appearance in our educational institutions, which I think we have not addressed. And this trend gives us opportunity to sit down and begin to address it in that way. So currently now, there is a confrontation between standardized behavior in our schools, including appearance, and the evolving cultural diversity as part of our social reality.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the way I see it.
It is, and I want to bring in Martin. Martin, people. So we're having this conversation, but it's also a question of rights, is it not? And so what's the position of the law on this? I have quoted the constitutional provision that says that there are exceptions to the enjoyment of your liberty if it's for the purpose of education and you are 18 years, and that some have referred to that and said the Achimota school can do this because it's purpose of education and the teenagers are 18 years and below. What's your position on that? What do you say to that?
I think we should note that the Constitution read as a whole. We don't plug out individual provisions, okay, and leave out others. So the one you've read from Article 14, okay, is correct. But you have to juxtapose it with Article 21, which says that a person has the right to practice any religion he or she chooses. And then you go to 26, which that's the second point. Then number 3, to the extent that in Ghana we don't have a direct Supreme Court pronouncement on this matter, we have to look around the world and see what's going on. So at least, since this matter came, the few cases I've seen, from Zimbabwe to the Jamaica, and then this Malawi, right? You would find that the courts are saying that, look, when it comes to religious reasons, students are allowed to wear dreadlocks. Evans, let's make that clear. That's not my personal position. You are asking me for a legal education, so I have to take. So let's make that clear that I am not like it's a personal position. We are talking about the law. Provisions that look like our provision in the Constitution. Elsewhere, the courts have made it clear that students are allowed to wear their dreadlocks if it's for religious reasons. So the Jamaican case that has become popular since this matter came about, if you read it into details, the court denied the second claimant, as a very good, the right to wear that hairstyle because they did not indicate that it was for a religious reason. They didn't say it was a religious reason. At a point, the lawyer argued that they have the right to express themselves how they so desire. And I think for the avoidance of that, of emphasis, let me just read a small quote from paragraph 91. That's a very good case in Jamaica. It says, this case is by a desire to have acceptance and accommodating defense of a conscientiously held belief based on a decision taken by an individual and their family about their chosen mode of self-expression. So it wasn't about Rastafarian, no. So even the judge prefaced that in Jamaica, if you invoke the religious grounds, Rastafarianism, you are allowed. At that case, they came and said, look, we have self-expression. Yes, hairstyles are part of self-expression. So they were saying that, look, we have self-expression, so we are allowed to do as we please. And the court said no. So the point is that, Evan, in places, even including Zimbabwe. There are 2 cases from Zimbabwe. The Vova case, okay, where the schoolgirl, she also had dreadlocks. In Zimbabwe, of all places, you know, Zimbabwe is a place, as Ghanaians nowadays would like to look at and feel that we are way ahead of them. And yet, years before us, they found space for children to wear dreadlocks to school. Once it's on religious grounds. These states are not many. So those saying we are going to open the floodgates, yes, it's a genuine concern. But let's remember that it's only for genuine religious purposes. So if a child who is not a Rastafarian comes to school with dreadlocks, if the school finds out that he doesn't come from a home that practices Rastafarianism, he himself is not one, they would revoke his admission. But for those that are genuine, like what you have before you now, and you see how the young man spoke very eloquently, it's clear in his mind that he wants to go with his dad's religion. I think let's grant him that space. So we can ask Angel and Co to tone down a bit. Let's look at what our peers are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Angel Carbono, please respond to that for me. You lost him. I'll get him back on that legal question, because I know he's been quoting that quite often. And I guess, Sheikh Karim Shaibu, that would apply to your dialogue that you've been having with the Ghana Education Service, the WAEC, as well, the legal question. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, once it becomes a matter of law, I think that what is in our constitution reigns supreme. Once what one can say is to say that we all have to obey the law of our country. Once our constitution guarantees freedom of religion and to associate and to manifest that religion, I think it has really made it so clear that it is a violation when any individual is denied the right, one, to show that he believes in a certain religion, to proclaim it, and indeed to make manifestation of that particular. And in this particular case, much as I'm the type who would want to go with a certain standard kind of appearance and behavior in our schools, I think we must also accept that dreadlock for some people is a matter of fashion. And those ones, we need to really have to handle them. But those that are based on a certain kind of belief, and those beliefs are part of our identity, and so therefore they are non-negotiable. I think that it is important that we go ahead with the dialogue. All the stakeholders, we need to sit down and then see what are the concerns of the GES, what are the concerns of the Board of Governors of Achimota, what are the limitations we can also put on those who want to appear the way they want to express their diversity, however minority they might be. I think in my view, I have a view that education is the lifeline for the proper development of every individual. And to deny such individuals education just on grounds of such appearances will be to jeopardize their progress. And I think that we don't want to go down that lane.
Okay. And
these children, these young people cannot wait. It's part of their development to be educated. They cannot wait. So I think that we need to press home the issue of the dialogue and how we can really get these people, these young people, to get educated, even as we address the issue of their religious identity. I agree with the lawyer that we must tone down, and probably we must begin to look at even the case of these young Rastafarians as a special case, treat it as a special case, as opposed to those who want to now display dreadlock in our schools as part of fashion and not religion. Yeah. We must draw a distinction between what is supposed to be a fashion and what is supposed to be a religious and cultural identity. Once the religious and cultural identity is non-negotiable, we cannot, on grounds of that non-negotiable identity, deny the children their education, because education is the lifeline for their development. Okay. And we cannot deny education.
Do we have Mr. Carbono back? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Kabono, yes. I mean, we lost you briefly, but we got some legal education from Martin Kpebu. And it was clear that, citing precedents across the world and our constitution, that your position is an illegal one. It's not supported by the constitution. And that he's asking that you tone down and make a separation between those who want to appear in a certain way for religious purposes and those who will come in for fashion purposes and crack the whip on that. But the constitution is clear on this. What's your reaction to that?
Well, when you say I should tone down, I'm sure you are talking to all schools to tone down on their insistence on the rules and regulations. Look, if today a decision is taken by all of us that we relax rules of discipline, rules of comportment, rules of uniformity and conformity in the schools, rules of restriction of students' movement, and rules of uniform, we teachers have nothing to lose. In fact, it will lessen the job that we are doing. I am just stating for you what the rules are as at today that you and I are having conversation. If tomorrow morning an announcement is made by the authorities that be, that rule A, B, C, D, E, F have been relaxed in senior high schools, we do not lose anything as teachers and managers of the schools. We will conform to it. The consequences will be brought to the fore, and everybody will have to share the consequences.
Yeah.
In Atlanta specifically, over 4,000 students from different homes and different backgrounds, we've developed different attitudes and behaviors, have been brought to one geographical environment. If we do not establish a universal code of conduct to unify behavior, conformity, at the end of the day, I can assure you, the reasons for which your brothers and sisters bring their children from Europe to be educated in Ghana will occur. That will create a lot of special private schools where rules and regulations are followed. Will it surprise you to note that uniforms are not worn in public schools in the United States, but uniforms are worn in private schools in the United States? People pay fortunes to send their children to private schools in the United States with rules and regulation, and the open system in the public schools is a chaotic situation.
Yeah, Mr. Kabono.
We do not let the new laws come. We will abide by the new rules and regulation, and that do not affect us. I am stating the rules and regulation as it pertains in every school, as you and I are having conversation.
Yeah, Mr. Kabono, so you're saying that I get the rules, but we cannot make an exception for religious purposes. We cannot make an exception for religious purposes. We can't.
Evans.
I'm just asking a question that we should not make an exception for religious purposes.
Evans.
Yes.
Yes.
There are a lot of exceptions made in schools in this country, across this country. The way these gentlemen went about their case in Achimota was wrong. They thought they could browbeat the school into submission by resorting to social media and the mass media. That was their problem.
Let me come to the studio. Ras Azwad, what's your reaction? This is the president of the Teachers Association.
Yes, sir.
What's your reaction to that? That he said your approach to your doctor was wrong.
Okay. The first thing I would like to say is that he's coming from a well-uninformed position. And it's very sad that you have a person like this that you call a teacher in an institution who doesn't inform himself.
I take very exception to that.
Yeah, I mean,
can you allow me to finish? Can you allow me?
I mean, Ras, I mean, we have to be decorous.
Yes.
And articulate the issues without, denigrating, because he's a very experienced teacher for years. So I wanted to address the issues without calling names.
No, but the point still remains that he's not informed. point still remains that he's not informed.
So state your position. What?
Yes.
State your position.
The first thing is that you need to go back and look at the history of where those rules came from. That's the first thing you have to do. Those rules that are in the school, there are some archaic rules that came from colonialism. And you have to check that first and see why those rules were in place. That's the first thing you have to do. When you check those rules, you recognize that those rules were deliberately in place to denigrate Africans. And I'm going to give it to you right now in terms of the history of that. Mission schools are what you call missionary schools. It's a religious school originally developed and run by Christian missionaries. The mission school was commonly used in the colonial era for the purpose of westernization of local people. That was the purpose of it. These may be the day schools or residential schools, as in the Canadian Indian residential school system. Then it goes on to say, mission schools were established as early as the 16th century. They eventually appeared on almost every continent and persisted in some regions to the late 20th century. That is history. These schools often adopt an evangelical and heavily denominational approach to religious education, with the intention of producing new teachers and religious leaders to propagate Christianity among the local population. They also provide academic and vocational training and usually discourage traditional practices of the local people. Mission schools were sometimes government funded, for example, the USA, right? So I'm going to stop right here. This is an old colonial philosophy and practices that was used to oppress African people. And you are continuing that same oppression on the African people. Are you using a westernized system, a colonial system to oppress Africans?
Okay, so, but the question, and I think, Mr. Kabon, I think, was it you, correct me if I'm wrong, who had stated that they haven't been denied admission and that if they insist on this, they can, in fact, find another school or their own that entertains their beliefs, correct?
Evans.
Yes.
The attitude that the gentleman has is exhibited to you, thinking that he is coming to teach me anything new, is what reflected in his misbehavior at Achimota School. He thinks that he knows more than those who manage the schools. And he is now coming to lecture me on African and Afro-American history. I don't need it from him. He has nothing to educate me on.
So let me ask you, so you know the history?
Yes, sir.
But so why do you want to take your child then to that school?
Because he has a right to go there under the Constitution. He has a right by the Constitution to go to any school in Ghana.
Yeah, but yes, he has a right. Yeah. The lawyers have explained that. But you've dug up the history. You know what the school stands for. It hasn't changed, as you well know and you've articulated. And yet, you still want to take your son there.
Because he has a right to go there.
Yeah, but then they also have a right to continue with a certain rule that they've implemented for decades, as you've painted.
Yeah, but those rules is not keeping with the spirit of the Constitution, right? So if they are violating the constitutional rights of the citizens of Ghana, then it should be addressed.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we've addressed the legal question. You have hinted that has anything changed, by the way, tonight? Has Achimota called your son?
No.
No. So they're still insisting that he can't enroll without the hair.
That's right. That's right.
Have you softened the stance? Are you going to remove the hair?
It's very sad when I hear this question.
No, I mean, I'm just asking.
No, I know you're asking, but it is very pathetic and sad when you hear this question, because people just trivialize the situation as if it's something that a piece of paper, you just take it and throw it away just like that. One must remember that these children were born with this. They were born that way. My child was born. He knows nothing else about combing ear, cutting ear, and so on and so forth. And for today, someone who has his religious dogma would think that he has the right and the power to tell the child that you must go and cut off your locks, which is part of your religious belief, which the Constitution gives you that right.
So that is why he can't cut it. I guess people don't like, so explain to me, and let's have an opportunity to do this education. Yeah. Explain to me why the dreadlocks is so central to your religion.
Yes.
Explain to me why you can't touch it. Because he's already told me that if he has to make a decision between the hair and Achimota, he will take the hair.
And he's right.
Yeah. So explain to me why the dreadlocks is so central to your religion that you won't compromise on it. Explain.
Okay. If the child is born with his locks and that is all he knows, right, and it has become a very, comfortable part of his life in terms of his cultural expression, right? Why would you think that it wouldn't be uncomfortable for him to just cut it off because someone decided to impose their religious dogma on them? It's not something that would make it, very... This is the reason why my son was getting traumatized and we had to take him to the psychiatrist hospital to render those situations.
Religiously, the religion says have the dreads. Is that? I just wanted to understand the religious.
Yes, it's part of it. Yes, it's part of the religious.
Stay with me. I want to bring in Martin Kwebu because he needs to leave us. Martin, so how do you resolve this if it comes down to the legal question?
Okay, so looking at it, as I've stated, in Ghana, our Supreme Court has not dealt with this matter. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
So what we'll do is that we look at the jurisprudence from across the world. And looking at it, they are all coming resoundingly in favor of the religious expression. So if you are going to Ghana's Supreme Court, or even if they were to go to the High Court, what the lawyers will do is to carry this shipload of cases from around the world and seek to persuade the judges here. And Evan, don't forget, religion is a fundamental human right, okay? And so usually we do our things in tandem with what the rest of the world will do. So if Rastafarians are given the exception across the world, there is no reason why in Ghana they will not be given. And indeed, there is the gentleman in Accra Academy. There's a picture circulating where the guy attended Accra Academy. And indeed, Achimota Secondary School itself, there are lots of people who are saying that even decades ago, there were some foreigners who had dread, others said they had the long hair. They were all allowed to go to school. It's Achimota Secondary saying that since then there's been an escalation of those persons who carry dreadlocks in the schools. So like I said earlier, this matter, somebody said today that maybe the media too has contributed in whipping too much attention because they say water level, the quality of our water is decreasing, yet we are not giving it so much attention, but we are giving this one too much, you say. So for me, look, clearly, as a lawyer, reading the cases that I've seen since this matter is come, it appears the religious exception is such a strong one. The Constitution guarantees freedom of religion, okay? So you would not likely deny somebody education in such a manner because of his religious belief.
Are you one of those who ascribe to the school of thought that it's time that the Supreme Court is brought in to settle this matter once and for all?
Well, it's not exactly clear to me yet. Let's say, going forward, as the debate is still evolving, as you're doing now, maybe we should let it drag a bit. Maybe the authorities will see that what they did on Saturday was the best thing. That was when they directed Achimota to let the boys in. If it fails, then definitely the boys will have to go to the Supreme Court. So for now, I think that as we are digging up the cases and digging up the jurisprudence, I expect GES to go back to the drawing table and look at it and put their feet down that they expect Achimota to comply with the directive.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Martin Kwebu, and Martin Kwebu will take a leave of us now. Is this an option that, because I've heard suggestions that you're considering taking legal action, is this something you're going to pursue, Ras?
Yes, because we recognize that they're adamant asking us to cut our dreadlocks, the children dreadlocks. So if that is the case, then we take it to court and let the court decide.
In the meantime, though, what are you going to do for your son?
Oh, by next week, my son will be in school.
Which school?
And I'm not going to say because I recognize that the GES have a little tendency right now to try to influence other schools to not accept Rastafarian children. Okay. So I'm not going to even say it.
So you've given up on Achimota?
It's not that I'm giving up on Achimota because it is a right to be in that school.
Yeah, I mean, in the wake of everything, you've given up on getting your child enrolled there.
Yes, for right now, but if we win the court case, I would want them to still go to that school.
Okay. Have you filed this court case?
It's about to, in a minute now.
Okay. I know you have your lawyers is Raswayo, correct?
It's a few lawyers, not just one. He's the leading lawyer, yeah.
Okay. And so this is definitely going to go to the...
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
Okay. How is your boy doing?
He's doing much better now because of the fact that I want to say give thanks to a lot of people who have came out and support us across the world. And that has encouraged him for him to recognize that it's not everyone have that kind of religious dogma and religious tendency for disrespecting you.
Okay. Have there been any conversation again with Achimota School since that last meeting at GS?
No. Since the last meeting at GS, no.
That must have been yesterday, right? Yesterday you had a meeting at GS?
The day before.
The day before, okay, yeah. And you haven't had any feedback from them anymore?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, at the time that you were going, you signed, let me bring you in, Tyrone. There was the admission slip said that you abide by the school's rules.
Yes, when you accept the offer of admission, you abide by the school's rules.
Yes.
And that is, as to appearance, it means cutting your hair and keeping it low. But I noticed this, I may not be an expert in analyzing it, but I noticed that, like with sports, they state sports is compulsory for all students, which means if I'm coming into Achimota School, I'm expected to deliver sporting activities. But they gave an exemption, which states for sports is compulsory although, but some students may be exempted for grounds of, I think, health or something, which means there are cases. They have had such special cases and they provided laws to deal with that. When we get to exits, they provided rules, general exit. But at that same instance, they provided special exits, which implies that they've had situations where there was a need because the general exit was unable to fully satisfy the situation. So they provided special exit. But when we come to appearance right now, we only see general appearance. We don't see special appearance because not us alone. I know Muslims too have this problem of wearing
which is what we've been talking about with Sheikh.
Yes, that's how I understand it. And I believe Ghana isn't a nation where there's only one religion. We have multiple religions, even though some are much more significant. So I think there should be an analyzing moment where we can actually distinguish between harmless consideration and harmful considerations. Because I remember he said there are 4,000 students in Achimota School and just 130 students. So he was saying if I particularly am admitted, other students will also come and tell you that my culture, I don't bath in the morning. That particularly, they may say it's their culture, but it's a harmful situation if we are to consider bathing. Who walks around bathing and not taking a bath? That is how I also noticed. And like walking around barefooted. That one is a harmful consideration. But with the hair particularly, we've been through education already. Not like we just came out of nowhere and we are like, we've qualified to second. We've been to first cycle school, which was the JHS. Yes. So right now, Ghana is a country where there are so many religions. So for this situation to properly be handled, I think there's a time where we need to carefully analyze harmful situations and considerations and harmless ones and make proper limitations as to everything.
Let me ask you, how old are you?
17.
17, okay. Since you were born, you haven't touched your hair, correct?
I have.
Okay. I mean, explain when you say you have.
Okay, like from the age of 1 to 13, I wasn't keeping it. But from 13, our dad asked us, do we really? Because even though we are less than 18 and we automatically need to go by our dad's religion, but then he gave us this bit of freedom to personally decide. And it was our decision. I mean, everyone wants to walk around in their dad's footsteps. So it was our personal decision. That was when we started at 13 till now. And it was a decision not to touch it. So
it was at 13 that you decided to become a Rastafarian?
Yes, please.
Okay, and that's where you started?
Or like keeping the hair.
Keeping the hair. Yes, sorry, that's where you decided to keep your hair. I mean, so some may argue and say, but I mean, for 13 years of your life, for majority of your life, you were like my hair, right? You were dealing with like my hair. So why can't you go back to that just for the purpose of 3 years of education?
Okay, let's just say we would have wished we started very earlier, right? We wish we started like from infancy because it's something we really love. But our dad wanted to properly make sure there wasn't any form of forceful influence. We're like, do it no matter what. He gave us this little bit of breathing space, which I think was very, very significantly good because you can't really impose something just directly.
Mr. Krabia, have you seen this this document that has been circulated widely, the admission of your...
Yes, sir.
You've seen it. Is this authentic?
Yes.
It's authentic?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, this document I'm showing to Mr. Krabia, it's the admission, the acceptance form into Achimota. He's confirmed it's authentic. It says, I, Oheneba Kwekun Krabia, that's your son.
Yes.
Do hereby accept the offer of admission offered to me with all the conditions attached and promise to abide by all regulations governing students in the school. I promise to offer agricultural science, visual arts, and he mentions the courses, and I promise to participate in all co-curricular activities in the school. Should I disobey authorities, the school authorities reserve the right to apply the appropriate sanctions against me. I understand that in the event of withdrawal of sanctions, appeals will not be entertained. And then you signed also, oh no, it said, I, Matilda.
Yes.
That's your wife?
The mother, yes.
That's the wife, okay, good. I, Matilda, then provides a name, says the parent guardian, endorse my child's ward's acceptance of the offer of admission made to him and her, and unreservedly declare my support for the authorities in the maintenance of discipline necessary for the training of my ward. I am aware the school insists on high academic performance and discipline. Therefore, poor academic performance and misconduct will result in withdrawal. The point that this makes, those who read this,
right,
is that you signed up to obey the school's rules. And so why are you now saying you didn't know?
I didn't say I didn't know.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that those rules are against the Constitution.
But you sign up to obey the rules.
Yeah, let me finish, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am saying that these rules are against the Constitution, and nothing is wrong if identifying it today and recognizing that. Please let me finish.
No problem.
Yeah. And recognizing that it needs to go to court for it to be properly rectified so that in the future our children and other children do not have to go through that problem. And then I just read out the history to you, that these are colonial laws and rules that was imposed by the white man to oppress Africans. It clearly states in there that it was deliberately designed to oppress African people.
Let me ask you, if at the time that your son and your wife were signing this, you knew that part of the rule says you have to remove your hair, would you have still signed it?
If at the time
that they were signing the document for enrollment and admission, they knew that part of the uncompromising regulation was that he will have to remove the dreadlocks, would you still have signed?
No, I wouldn't have signed it.
You would have signed it.
I wouldn't have signed it.
So you only signed it because you didn't know it was part of the rule?
Yes, I did. I didn't recognize it at the time because my wife went there and dealt with it. So when I went there, I was very surprised to see that that was really the rules. And then I went and did a research on the school and found this information here. And I'm saying that the teachers, they make this big issue out of the fact that the child needs to cut his hair. And what they use is that the child is going to break discipline and so on and so forth. I think they should use a more well-informed approach and a more scientific approach to determine that. They have been to other schools. Why don't the school authorities send a team to go to the other schools that these children went to see what happened in that school? Evidence is there, and I'm sure they're not going to find one problem with the children dreadlocks in those schools.
Let me end with Sheikh Arimaya Saibu. Sheikh, what's your proposal for how this question of diversity should be resolved? Do you think this is a seminal moment that the authorities need to capitalize, or the country broadly, to clearly define the rules and deal with this matter once and for all?
Yeah, I mean, in a situation of unavoidable diversity, the only process to resolve differences is dialogue. And like I said earlier on, probably when we were establishing our institutions, we did not anticipate that our diversity will become so pronounced as to give us these challenges. So we didn't make provisions for that. Like we are experiencing what we are experiencing I mean, currently. I mean, these are children whose appearance hinges so much on what they believe in and what's their identity, and they believe in what their constitution also guaranteed them, that they have to they are allowed to believe in something and to manifest the belief. This constitutional provision is so fundamental to the right. It didn't anticipate some of these things. So I think our educational authorities can use this time as an opportunity to negotiate and to dialogue over how to deal with these matters.
Exactly.
I agree with Angel Kabonu that those affected were quick in going to the, what do you call it, the court of public opinion on the social media, and to attract this kind of uproar and to bastardize our educational system. Indeed, the rules and regulations were well intended. They were intended to set a standard of behavior that will ensure that any child who comes from our school system will be a well-behaved person. It was not for any show of authority. So if times have changed, we need to now negotiate. So for them to have gone on to the court of public opinion, I think it was offensive to our system. But be that it may, I am saying that these are young people. Education is a lifeline to their progress and development. And any attempt to deny them education on grounds of this kind of appearance is to deny them progress of their lives. And I think that is so fundamental that we should not do that. We should be, like we have calling with the Muslim community, one, let's call for dialogue with all the minority groups. GES should promote, to facilitate this, and then let's have a kind of understanding of each other. Okay. But as we do so, I insist, these children cannot wait.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And let me end with you, Tyrone. What were you going to study?
General science. General science.
General science, okay. Yes, and what was your ambition? What do you want to be in the future?
An engineer.
You wanted to be an engineer? Yes, what aspect of engineering?
Sound engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, and engineering significantly related to electronics.
Electronics, yes, okay. Do you have all the fear that all this might affect that dream?
Well, I think so.
It might?
Yeah.
You fear that it might?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does. Because to pursue such an education, you will need tertiary education. And to qualify into tertiary education, you need the second cycle education.
So if you don't get this, you might not get that.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Kaboni, so I guess a few seconds. I mean, this conversation has already come. From you, where you stand and from your experience, we lost him. Okay. Ras, thank you very much.
Thank you too.
You said next week your child will be in school, so yes, definitely. We'll see. We'll wish you well. Wish him well, and all of you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
And thanks to your dad also, who had to play substitute. He had to be substituted for us to join the conversation. Enjoy the rest of your evening. This conversation is finished. It's a bigger one than what we just had, and more of that. Expand the scope. We'll have it here on PM Express. Enjoy your rest of the evening.